Oh man, cranking out these Tears of the Kingdom myth-busting videos is a lot of work, but it's amazing to see that so many of you love them. Heck, I even started covering other games like Super Mario 64, but I still want to do some Tears of the Kingdom videos. I mean, I have some very cool suggestions left, and today we are looking at some really good ones as well. We will be giving Bokoblin some special weapons to see what happens, we are going to see what the sun could do to butter, and we will see how tough Koroks really are. So, let's dive into all of this right away. Number 15. Boomerangs, a classic, a true staple for this video series. Because man oh man, each time we cover Tears of the Kingdom myths, we have to cover at least one myth involving boomerangs. It's almost like a requirement. And today we will try to combine it with a different item found in the game to see if it will behave differently. Because user Izzy the Bower asked me, will attaching a sail to a boomerang create a whirlwind like the Gale Boomerang from Zelda Twilight Princess? Well, who knows? And so I decided to test it. In the past, we tried to achieve this effect as well, but sadly enough failed. But maybe this will work. And so I went to Lurlin Village to find a sail to fuse to my beautiful Australian throwing stick. Now, when I started waving it around, it created a strong gust of wind, but when I tried to throw it, the same thing happened. So in the end, it does the same as a Korok leaf, which can be handy, but it doesn't turn into some sort of Gale Boomerang. So yeah, this claim is false. It sadly enough doesn't work. Number 14. In Breath of the Wild, we had different powers, and something like recall wasn't a thing in the game. And so when a Bokoblin threw a rock at you, the only thing you could do to return it to the sender is parrying it with your shield. And this also works in Tears of the Kingdom. But someone in my comment section known as Clark's World wondered if you could also parry the giant rock thrown by a boss Bokoblin. Well, I didn't know if that was possible, and so I found myself a boss Bokoblin and confronted him. Now, as soon as he blew his horn and the Bokoblin set up a defensive half circle around him, I was ready to parry his huge rocks. And to my surprise, this works incredibly well, even though those things are massive. But the damage they do is a bit disappointing. They don't even break up the Bokoblin formation in front of the boss, even though that would have been a fun and handy effect. But it does show that this claim is real, which is pretty neat. Number 13. When Nintendo went into a new direction and created Breath of the Wild, we were introduced to a new evil group, the Yiga, Sheikahs who felt like they were betrayed by the Hyrulean royal family, and so they started fighting for evil. And one goal they have is getting rid of Link, the biggest threat to Ganondorf. And usually they try to accomplish this by ambushing you. And in Tears of the Kingdom, they changed their tactics a bit. One way they try to trick you now is by putting out banana traps, and then they will disguise themselves as a tree nearby. Now, as soon as you grab it, they will attack. But is there a way around this? Well, according to this user, whose name is a jumbled up mess, you can avoid all of this by shooting the banana with a flame arrow, which turns it into baked bananas. But does this work? Well, I tried it, both from up close by throwing a fire fruit, and from afar by shooting it with a fire arrow. And I found out that doing this up close doesn't work, but if you're far away, it does work. So this claim is true. Although personally, I will just fight the Yiga for the extra bananas and rupees that he has. Number 12. The most feared enemy in the world of Hyrule has to be the Gloom Hands. They can come out of nowhere, are very fast, and deal a good amount of damage. But if you manage to kill them, an even scarier foe will appear. Phantom Ganon, a gloom and malice version of the Dark Lord himself. And while he can be a bit of a challenge, he does drop some amazing weapons. But there is one downside. If you use them, you will take gloom damage. So in a way, it's similar to the double-edge move in Pokemon. High damage, but you also get damaged yourself. However, someone in the comments known as Maximus said, if you attach a gloom sword to any other weapon, you won't get gloom damage, which would be super handy. And so I tried it. And man oh man, this works well. You can easily create a very strong weapon, and you take no damage at all. Although it seems like the blade will break quite easily. So while it's good, it is far from overpowered. Number 11. This next myth was simple. It was a little experiment with octo balloons, another classic for these videos. User Gloom said, if you fuse one of these things to a shield, it will allow you to fly, but it's nowhere near as good as a rocket. Now, as expected, I went to test it, and to my surprise, it actually works. Link will hold on to the shield and slowly goes up due to the balloon, which is really cool. I never knew this was a thing, and man oh man, it works really well. And sure, it isn't the best thing out there, but it can be handy in a pinch, especially because you go up slowly, so you have a lot of control due to this, unlike the rocket. So I gotta say, I freaking love this. Number 10. Some of you are truly sadistic. I mean, I do some weird stuff in games, but I don't torture poor creatures. Well, unless you guys want me to. And I guess Pokaly wants me to bully the Koroks in order to test a myth. Because according to this user, if you hold a Korok underwater with Ultra Hand, then it will have a special piece of dialogue upon resurfacing. However, is this real? Or is it just a lie so that I will do horrible things which can be used against me at some point to cancel my career? Well, let's find out. I grabbed this poor defenseless Korok and held it underwater, hoping that it would confirm the myth. But sadly enough, doing this isn't really useful. Nothing really happens. The Korok doesn't react to the situation at all. It just keeps saying that it's lost and needs to find its friend. That's it. Even though it is at the bottom of a stream. So yeah, this claim is false. And luckily enough, the Korok survived it all. Number 9. When Nintendo decided to go for a more open world and modern design with the Switch titles, they left a lot of concepts of the older games in the past. For example, the more linear structure, Ocarina of Time dungeon designs, and special items. And some people like this while others hate it. Personally, I'm a bit mixed, but I will say I did like Breath of the Wild more than Tears of the Kingdom, mostly because of the story and world building. But not all things from the older games are gone. And one question that Super Chomps had about this was, can Boomerang still collect items when thrown? Well, I had no idea, and so I decided to try this with a couple of items. But after throwing the thing again and again, I could see that it did nothing. And someone else also responded to this comment and tested it as well, and came to the same conclusion. So while this was a thing in the older games, it certainly isn't in the new titles, even not with rupees. So yeah, this claim is sadly enough false. It would have been really handy after all. Number 8. For some reason, when they were rebuilding Hyrule after the Great Calamity, they also had to put up loads of signs promoting the company working on it all. And it seems like they put one guy in charge of doing this, Addison. A guy who's dedicated. A bit, too dedicated. But if you want, you can help him. All you need to do is keep the sign up so he can secure it. Now, usually people create all kinds of things to make this impossible, while some just use shortcuts like a hoverstone. But is there another way you can cheat it? Well, according to T-Bird, a stabilizer could do the trick, which makes sense. It's made to keep things upright, and so I tried to do this. But I noticed that it doesn't work as well as you would want. Sure, in some instances it could work very well, but often it isn't the simple and super effective trick that you would want. Personally, I would say that using the hoverstone is still a better idea. It's simple and works really well, so I would call this one plausible. It really depends on the situation. Number 7. When you roam the land, you can encounter unspeakable horrors that will rip you to shreds if you don't watch out. And like I said, the Gloom hands are probably the most terrifying ones out there. But can you kill them with a simple trick? They are creatures made out of pure Gloom darkness, and as we all know, Gloom can be defeated by light. And so Nitro the cat lover said, what happens if you try shining a Zonai light at the Gloom hands? Well, I don't know. Maybe they die, or maybe they freeze. And so I went to my lovely boys to test this one. Now I put a Zonai light on my shield so I could easily shine the light on them. But when I confronted them, I got absolutely owned. They didn't care about my fun little nightlight, they just grabbed me. Man, I almost got killed testing this stuff. So while the idea is good, the Gloom hands don't really care about it, so this claim is false. Number 6. One of the things that Nintendo introduced in Tears of the Kingdom that I like the most are the boss bokoblins. I like the idea of a commander of sorts that can give normal bokos instructions. In many ways, it makes them more effective. But someone claimed something in the comments that was surprising to say the least. According to Merci3Ls, if you shoot a boss bokoblin with an ancient arrow, his bokoblin pack will start crying because he's dead now. Now, when I read this, I knew I had to test it, and so I confronted this group and immediately shot him with an ancient arrow. As expected, the big boy died right away and was sent to a weird dimension none of us have ever seen. And the bokoblins were shocked, then mad, and proceeded to attack me. However, they didn't cry or anything. So what was described by this person in the comments, so far as I can see, is false. Number 5. When I released the first Tears of the Kingdom myth-busting video ever, I tested something that I thought was quite funny. Would butter help with shield surfing? People loved the idea, and especially the thumbnail for that video. But now I am back with another interesting shield surfing myth. Well, I mean, I didn't come up with it. Because Lily Flake asked me, does a bottle of oil make you shield surf faster? And when I read this, I was instantly ready to test it. And so I went to the desert, the perfect setting for oil, if you get what I mean, and I slapped a bottle of oil on my shield. Now, when I shield surfed, the bottle broke, and I could actually shield surf pretty well, which I didn't expect. However, after surfing without the oil, I could easily get around as well. So, to be honest, I was quite confused. I'm not sure if this actually helped me in any way. The results, as far as I can see, were the same. So yeah, I think this one is false. I even checked it real quick on grass when writing this segment, and I could clearly see that nothing changed. Number 4. In this video, we have already done some testing with Gloom weapons because they are just so powerful. But someone in the comments came up with another fun myth that I really wanted to test. The user Starstorm said, will enemies pick up a Gloom sword? And if so, will it also deal damage to them when they use it? Because in the game, each time Link uses it, he takes some Gloom damage. But enemies like bokoblins are made out of Gloom and Malice, so maybe it doesn't hurt them. So what will happen? Well, I went into the game and found myself a bokoblin who wouldn't instantly kill me with this weapon. And when he hit me, I took a good amount of damage, but the bokoblin seems fine as far as I can see. And so I allowed him to hit me a couple of times. But when I killed him, I could see that he took no damage from the weapon at all. Which makes sense. Gloom obviously doesn't hurt them, and so this claim is true, like I already expected. Number 3. Now, when I was in the desert, I decided to test another myth. I saw it in the comments, and I thought it was pretty funny. As we all know, it's quite hot there, and we have seen in previous videos that all kinds of things like ice will melt there over time. But what about butter? That's what this user was wondering about. And so I took a stick of butter and put it on the ground. And then I waited, and waited, and waited some more. But as time went by, nothing really changed. The butter didn't melt or anything. So while you would expect the butter to shrink over time, it's not a thing in the game. So while Nintendo loves to add all kinds of little details to titles like this, they decided to skip the butter when it comes to this. Number 2. Now, the user who came up with the last myth, which clearly didn't do much, also suggested something else. And I gotta say, he wasn't the only one. Many people suggested this next myth. What happens if you give an enemy a weapon with an ancient blade added to it, and he hits you with it? Will you instantly die and disappear like all the other enemies when they are struck by this powerful weapon? Well, who knows? It would be really cool, to be honest. And so I gave the weapon to this red bokoblin to see what would happen. Now, when he hit me, I took loads of damage, but it didn't have any special effect. I didn't disappear or anything. So yeah, I guess this doesn't work at all. Sure, it does massive damage, but I'm not sent to a different dimension, sadly enough. It would have been amazing if Link was gone instantly like all the other enemies. Now that would have been a cool game over to see. Number 1. If I had to name the best new ability in Tears of the Kingdom, then I would most likely say Fuse. But Recall is also pretty sick, and really useful in some instances. However, someone came up with a trick that could make it even better. Decibros said that you can actually shoot a Zonai stake using an arrow, and then recall it. This way you can pull items and things towards you. Now when I read this, my mind was blown. My third eye opened, and I was excited. If this was real, it could be amazing for so many things like dungeons, shrines, and helping Koroks. But is this real? Well, I decided to test it on a couple of different things, like rocks, but each time I shot it, the stake would disappear. So it seemed like it wouldn't work. However, when I used it on other stuff like the ground, it worked very well. So the results were a bit mixed. It isn't the one-trick pony you hope it is, because it clearly doesn't work on everything. But on some things, it's beyond amazing and can really help you out in a pinch. So trying it is almost always worth it, especially if you can skip stuff with it. Heck, maybe it's even useful in speedruns. It wouldn't surprise me, but I guess only time will tell. Now those were all the myths we had, but don't be sad. I have so many more videos like this, and even on other games like Super Mario 64 and Breath of the Wild. So go check them out, and leave your suggestions below, even if it's for another game, because maybe you will be in the next video. I do read an insane amount of comments after all. Thank you all so much for watching. Be sure to like, subscribe, click the bell button, check out the other videos. Like I said, I've done many, and leave your ideas below, or anything really. I read a lot of the comments. Sometimes you guys say the funniest stuff, or the most profound stuff. I'm not sure how many more of these I'm gonna do. I've already done 11 at this point. Maybe I'll do 1 or 2 more, because I also want to cover. I also want to do a lot of videos on Super Mario Bros. Wonder when that comes out, as well as other games. Yeah, I don't know, give me ideas below and I'll see what I'm gonna do, okay? Bye everybody, little kisses from Papa Wily. Mwah! Have a good night's sleep.